Just a quick recap. Remember, there are two options. You have the choice. You may choose virtual if you're concerned about some health safety reasons for your child or someone in your home. You may choose the virtual platform and stay at home, or you may choose the in-person platform with modifications. So Wes and others are going to talk today about, and you can see it on the screen there, they're going to talk about, okay, what exactly does that look like? What are some of those safety modifications in the in-person? And then, if you feel a little hesitant about coming to school, certainly choose the virtual academy. And remember, you can bounce back over at the end of a grading period, which is 9 weeks in our school district. Will we provide devices and internet for students without access to one at home? So for internet access, one of the things, last year we used the buses with Wi-Fi on them. We also had hotspots that we pushed out throughout the city. So we'll definitely do hotspots again. I don't know specifically on providing each home internet access, but we've already been in conversations about how do we get more towers to San Angelo to allow that access. One thing we will do, though, is if there is a student without a device, we will get that student a device. We operated that way in the spring. So if there's a student without a device, let that campus principal know, and we will ensure that that child, that student, has a device for a virtual platform. So we're definitely going to make that happen. Can students sign in for virtual instructions in the evenings? Yes. Students will have the flexibility to sign in and do their daily requirements in the evening as long as they are active for the required amount of time daily. Remember, we referred to crisis ed in the spring, but this is different. So, we have a strict protocol for the academics in the fall on the virtual platform. So there's daily sign-in components, but yes, you can do that in the evening. So students will have the flexibility to work on the courses in the order or sequence that they prefer, but they have to show progress weekly. And those come out from state mandates too. So they'll also be monitored by SAISD teachers, and then there's check-in with the students. So we'll talk about that more in the in-person, and we'll touch back to the virtual platform as well.
People keep asking, is it going to be different from last spring? Yes, it's going to be very, very different from last spring because we will actually be using a platform. It's Edgenuity is what it is called, and that is where our instruction is going to be. That's how it's going to live in that virtual academy. And what Edgenuity is a platform that provides that instructional setting. The teachers are through there. It's not live teaching. It's accessing that so that your students have that flexibility to access the instruction at their convenience, but they do have to show daily that they're going in and accessing it and making progress, doing assignments through it and all of that. I will say also that we're working every single day on determining exactly which courses for secondary that we will be offering. Really for elementary, that's not so much an issue. For high school, that's a little bit of an issue, honestly, because we're trying to determine exactly what is offered. We have some courses that are kind of unique to our district. And so we are determining exactly what courses are going to be available through that virtual academy and what courses might just, and if you're going to participate in a particular course that you're going to just need to choose in person. We're getting more information about that, and we will be releasing what those courses are as soon as we make those determinations. So as your students are going to be accessing devices at school, we want to remind everyone that we do have a BYOD, which is a bring your own device program in our district that we've had for a while, but your student is able to bring his or her own device to school, and it would be going through the filter in the district. They access it through like their passcode that they would have. And so students can bring, my daughter, Julia, she has a Chromebook at home. Well, she chooses to bring her Chromebook back and forth to school every day. And that way she uses her device, and it's the same one she'll use at home, and she's welcome to do that. So be thinking that way. And if you're someone who wants to do that and have your child in person bringing their own device, they're gonna be able to do that. So we will also have more details about that.
We do ask the parents screen their child every day before they come to school. We ask them not to send their child to school sick. But when when a student does have a fever, it had been 24 hours in the past being fever-free. And those guidelines have now extended out to 72 hours. So that's going to be a little bit of a change coming from previous years going into next year. But it is one that we're going to adhere to make sure that we keep everybody safe as we go back to school. One of the biggest questions that everybody's have is around face masks. What the expectation is we're going to follow what the governor's executive order states, and that is during our entry times and transition times, and when we're not able to social distance, we will be wearing our face mask. And that also means that sometimes in our classrooms, when we're not able to social distance, those face masks will be required as well. What about spacing in the classroom? What is that going to look like? The guidance, of course, is going to depend upon the number of students that show up to that in-person classroom. We are going to look at our numbers as we get registration in, and we will look at those spacing to space as much as possible in those classrooms, and follow to make sure that we are safe there as well. So we're in the process of restructuring our morning entry for students, what our dismissal is going to look like, and lunch procedures. For example, our cafeterias are looking at providing prepackaged box lunches to avoid long lines in the cafeteria, and how we get those to students is going to look a little bit different than what it has traditionally looked like when students have gone through the cafeteria. Another question I know that we've seen are students going to be able to eat in the cafeteria? And right now, we are looking at that's definitely going to be part of the plan, is for students to eat in the cafeteria. But know that we are also looking at other areas and other available spaces that we can utilize for students to eat lunch at, so that we can help as distance as much as possible. So more information on those total protocols are going to be coming out. As Dr. Detloff said earlier, we're kind of at the top of that funnel and we're working that down. So more information will definitely be coming out about that as well. Currently, there are no restrictions on students, the number of riders that can ride a bus from TEA when we get back to that regular transportation schedule. So that's why we're asking that if you can. However, if you can't, do know that our buses will be running, and we will have some measures in place as far as that is concerned as well. To the extent possible, depending on ridership, we're going to distance kids out as they are on the bus to the very best of our ability. But again, that's going to depend on the number of students who really want to ride the bus and show up for transportation. Kind of where we're leaning is for our students that are fourth grade and up to go ahead and wear those masks where we are required to. Students in fourth grade and younger are going to be encouraged to wear a mask, but not necessarily required. And our bus drivers will do that as well. And then after every trip, our buses are going to be cleaned. The seats are going to be wiped down. We're going to disinfect those and follow protocols after every trip before it goes out on the next one, we make sure that we have disinfected those buses.
We have a question that if we do in-person instruction and our child gets COVID, will they have to quarantine for 2 weeks?
I think the protocol is that there is a quarantine. If somebody tests for COVID, there's a quarantine period, and then they have to be symptom-free for a set amount of time. I think that was 10 days before they could return to school. And so once that test is received, to make sure that you notify the school so that we know what that is and we can take our proper safety protocols as well.